This is really exciting. I enjoy this very much. And, this is the time of year when the blue devils come, you can't go outside, it's just too cold, right? And then too much snow. And you want to paint something exciting, and you're thinking about spring, maybe just starting to. So I brought these two. These are still lifes that I sort of developed into these sort of florals with birds. And I was thinking of spring and the robin and the chicks and then these various birds from summer. So the point of it is that these are outdoor still life ideas. And one of the reasons why I want to do this class is that you can learn a lot about landscape by doing still life, because you have to first of all compose this random stuff on the stand and make a painting out of it. And when you're outside, just very briefly, you're awed by the clouds. You paint the mountains, and those things somehow are easier to paint. Then when you get down to the foreground, you've just got this wall of green. And you're thinking, well, what do I do? I can't, there's no time left to paint it all, You do back then, you run out of time already and you've got all this detail. So what do? You look at all the old master paintings, and you'll see that they simplified it. And they simplified it according to the still life principle. So in other words, they took little elements from nature and composed them. So there's a little grouping here, a little grouping there, and that turns out to be all you really need to convey the idea that there's maybe some grass or there's some flowers there, without having to have this wall of green. And I thought that if we do a class, I'd never want to work from pictures. If you wanted to work from pictures, that's okay, but I would rather have a still life there and you work from life. So I'd bring in some plants and some various things, and you would put them in the landscape and maybe make a landscape around it. So that would be the class. But in any case, the way these demos go, what I'd like you to do is just feel totally free to interrupt me with a question. Okay? I take any and all questions. They even don't have to be about painting. I'll give you an answer. You may not like the answer, but the whole point is that this is fun. We've been all bottled up in our cabins, and now we want to be outside and have some fun. So what I would like to do is start with a scene that's very dear to me, an area that's very dear to me, and that's Bowman Lake. And every time I feel things are very stressful, I go to that place in my head. So I thought, well, why not do a demo of Bowman Lake? So I'm working from my mind and wherever else inspiration comes, and who knows? It could be a total disaster, or it could be something really great, and I have no idea, but we'll have fun no matter what. So please ask me any questions about technique, and I'm just going to start going into it. And I'll paint this the way I paint pieces outdoors, which is, I'm not changing techniques for indoors. So if I'm out in front of Bowman Lake and it's, summer and there's, beautiful moist air and clouds and everything, and I'm looking at Rainbow Peak, I'll paint it just like this. I'll start out, and I'm actually trying this new technique here so that everyone can see what I'm mixing, because it's always such a secret when the artist is going like this and you can't see what he's doing, or she. And right here, I'm going to try to see if this works. It may just all fall on the floor and be totally useless. Who knows? So I just want to, I use black. Black is a great color. Velázquez called it the king of colors. And it's a color as well as a value, and it's a concept. And that's something when I teach classes, I manage to plug the idea of black. So I just get something, it could be anything, just a dark, something where I can draw. And I'm always going for the gestures, the rhythms. So I'm thinking about Rainbow Peak here, and I'm thinking about sort of like this, you know. A lot of mountains and glacier are sort of like that, right? They kind of, there's kind of a rhythm to them, and when you start getting used to these mountains, you start to understand that rhythm. So, and again, you know, I've done a lot of life drawing, and so it's about rhythms, and that's what makes it art instead of you know, a technology. You know, you're not a laser printer, you're a human being, right? And so here's the second peak right here, and there's a little one of those arêtes, or whatever they call them. Some geologists here would tell us what it is. So I'm just sort of getting, and you see I'm scribbling. I'm just trying to get the rhythm. See, you can get, you know, the whole point is not to, you know, I mean, you're not going to, for abstraction, you're just trying to, you know, get the rhythm, and then later on the detail comes. So what I'd like to do is I'm envisioning the shore right here. And, you know, I may correct my drawing, I may decide, well, this mountain that goes like this would be better like this. And maybe this one is a little bit... So you get rusty, and then you start, the more you work, the more fluid you become. So I'm just getting that idea in there. So now I get a bigger brush. Any questions, anyone?
What's your medium?
Oh, the medium. Good question. I always paint with a medium, and basically I like something that I can tinker with. So when I go to the store and they have these things that are already pre-mixed, I have no idea what's inside. So I can't really, you know, modify them to my taste. So what I do is I take some stand oil and sun-thickened walnut oil. And for me that works just beautiful. So, okay, so right now I'm going to think about the sky. First of all, when you're outside, almost, you know, second nature is where's the sun? Now, the sun is coming from, at this time of day, it's coming from over my left shoulder. And so you got to do that. You got to first think about it when you're painting. So I'm just going to start. I'm not going to be all. That's interesting. I'm not going to be all like neurotic about whether I cover up my drawing. I mean, I already know it's in there somewhere. Well. Someone's going to have to like hold on to the back now.
I can put a shoe in it.
No, it needs some wind. I'll just hold it. That's good. So I'm out there and I'm envisioning this really great scene out there that's sort of like early summer. You know, when the air is moist and there's a new front coming in and you don't know if you're going to be rained on or if it's all going to clear. So I just starting to lay down the main idea here.
We're going to try and put a paver behind that.
Oh, that'd be great.
Maybe that'll keep it from bouncing.
Wow. Yes. Wow.
Toward that.
Which one do you want?
This one, if you can. That'll work. That'll work.
Two? We got a rock out front.
Yeah, that'll be fine. That's great. That'll help enormously. Thank you. That'll work. Okay. So I'm just thinking about the water and atmosphere, you know? And now, so I'm thinking about, you know, see the beauty of this technique that I've spent most of my life trying to really develop is that you're just painting completely freely. So, you know, you can change things around. You know, that's why oil paint was invented in the first place. You know, we forget the history of oil paint. Everybody comes into oil painting these days with an acrylic background or watercolor, and you know, they're always washing their brushes and in a pot of turpentine around their necks, and then, you know, God forbid, spark, and they blow up and fireball, and then they die of poisoning from breathing that stuff. And you know, my teacher taught me that oil painting came from this whole frustration in the 1600s, early 1600s, with all this really tight, either you were doing fresco or you were doing these very egg tempera colored drawings, and egg tempera dries immediately. Once it's dried, you can't do anything about it. But the artists were going crazy. They wanted a medium that you could just play around with ad infinitum. So the idea of just trying to use oil these days to fill in a colored drawing, it doesn't, you know, fly with me, because the potential for, you know, what it has to offer is just amazing. So, you know, you feel, when you start building a paint in there, you start to feel a response, like the medium that's in there is set up and it's starting to dry. So you feel kind of a tugging, and you know, it's a very satisfying feeling. So I'm thinking about like the clouds. You could go, you know, some of the other clouds that they're coming in. There's the upper clouds and the lower clouds. And see, clouds have anatomy. So when I teach landscape classes outdoors, clouds, they have, you know, a logic to them. They have you know, a form that relates to how they're created and what forces are at work. So depending on what kind of cloud it is, it's going to have a certain shape. And so you got to just know that. And I used to, when I was a student, well, still am a student, but when I was in my early days especially, I would get a big panel and I would divide it into 8 or 9 different squares and go out on a cloudy day and just quickly do one sky study after another as the clouds are moving, because they're always amazing how they're moving. So, and I didn't even have coffee. Somebody wanted me to have coffee. Right. Any questions?
Do you ever use knives as opposed to brushes?
Only when I'm in trouble. Somebody's about to mug me when I use a knife. No, but knives are they're okay. They're just not my style. I like thinner, and it's a personal preference. But you know, I saw a really great video recently of the technique of Ode Nerdrum, and it's quite something what he's able to do. And he uses a lot of. He works with a combination of knife, brush, and his fingers. So, which is, I forget that you can do that. You know, you spit into your fingers and then rub it, and it forms kind of a very soft emulsion. And it's good if you want to do skin, you know.
You always start with the sky?
Good question. Yes. I start with the sky because the sky tells me pretty much the mood and the direction of the sun. And so the mood of the day, what kind of day it is. And I always try to put a lot of sky in the painting. Because there's just something so beautiful about the way the cloud, the mystery. I'm always after mystery, you know. To me, a really sunny day is totally boring, you know. I mean, I like when clouds appear and start to, you know, blur edges and create mystery. And there's a kind of a restlessness in nature that there isn't otherwise. Yes.
Does it affect your painting what surface you're painting on, linen versus cotton duck versus board?
Well, that's a good question. It does. It does affect your approach. And the best painting surface is the most expensive and hardest to get. So I've just ruled that out. It's Belgian linen with flake white priming, which is lead. And for some reason, people don't like lead.
Yeah, I wonder why.
It's just, you know, they don't want to handle it anymore. But it's because of the principle of fat over lean in oil painting. Flake white is the leanest color, so everything you put on it is fat by comparison, which means more percentage of oil. And I've worked on enough of it that I know it's just beautiful. With acrylic gesso, it sort of just slides around, and there isn't this kind of like marriage between the surface and the paint the way there is with lead. But it doesn't mean that, I mean, you can't get that, you know, right here, this is like I said before, I put, instead of acrylic gesso, I thought I would just use the natural color of the MDF, and then and then put just clear coat polyurethane. That works, you know, and it feels good to paint on. So, I mean, even if you can't get the lead, you find your own way to get around it, you know.
Would that be a standard size brush that you'd use with a painting this big?
Well, I don't know. I don't think
And
it.
what size brushes? Looks pretty small for
It's,
such
I
a
don't know,
big
it's
painting.
size 4. I paint with rounds because you can sort of draw a line with it, where you twirl it, and you can get a very accurate line, and then you could also lay in, you know, the paint. So, and you know, that works with your medium. I mean, if you don't have a good medium, then, you know, paint is like wet concrete or mud. So then you get the bright, or the square brush, that's the bright, and then what's the other one called?
Flat.
Flat, yeah. So it's like one of the spades or whatever. You know, you got to move the paint around that way. But with the medium, you get this nice soft feeling, and you know, it's just, you can paint much more thinly. So you don't always have to paint with that sort of feeling, texture. And you look at a lot of the old masters, and many of them have very little paint on them. Even Rembrandt, you know, you look at it, and there's not a whole heck of a lot of paint on there. And that's because paint was very expensive, you know. I mean, it was very expensive. And then they didn't have the great, you know, we live in the greatest age of all for painting, because every color you can think of, you can direct paint with. In the old days, for a lot of these great colors, you had to have an underpainting that was finished, and then you would get lapis lazuli or some semi-precious thing, and then you would glaze over it, and it would be very expensive. So, you know, everything we can do right now with this blues is just fabulous. It's all right, I'm blabbing away, and okay, I'm about a quarter done. So here's this rainbow peak. It's coming up as a shadow, and let's try to get this feeling of this.
What color blend is that you're using?
Well, it's a combination of black, blue, what's underneath here, and some red and green. So I'm not really thinking anymore about what I'm doing. It's just sort of, it's an instinct. And I think that's what it should be, ultimately. I mean, I guess I'm always in such a hurry to paint outdoors. I just stop thinking, and I just do it. And it's, so I'm just laying it in, just this is the first, See, I'm always relating everything to the atmospheric tones. So I'm always working the greens back into the blue violets. So it's almost like it's not really what color is it anymore, but what's the concept here? And it's always that, see, I always believe that a great painting should, you know, a landscape should go way back behind the frame. You know, there should be great depth. And so that's what I try to get, this great feeling of vastness. Because, you know, you got still lifes and you got portraits and all that in the studio, and you got, you know, you're just from here to there all the time. So this is your chance to show that you can paint these fantastic vistas and give them scale, you know? It's like, if you don't give it scale, then it doesn't look like anything, right? I mean, you want someone who's never been to Bowman Lake to want to go there, you know, because it's a fantastic place. So I'm going to try now to get the feeling of the sun hitting the rocks there. So maybe I'll throw some of this in there. And that flank as it picks up the light. And then see, I'm always working wet and wet, so I'm blending, I'm doing most of the work on the panel, not on the palette really. So I'm trying to pick up this feeling, the light here. Oh, hi, how you doing, Bert? Well, it's 6:20. You're not as late as you thought.
You're well on your way.
Well, it just, yeah. But have a seat. There's a couple seats right there. Vern and Sue have just come in. Vern has studied with me for several years, and he's done a fantastic job. The work is great. He has a beautiful piece downstairs in the member show, and there's some nice pieces down in the member show. Really nice, beautiful pieces. There's a beautiful Mark Ogle there, and actually, you know, this Karen Lee show is very beautiful too. And I just want to point out that she did a watercolor right in, I forget what studio number it is, but that's the Art Students League, and I have my drawing class in that studio. So that's where I went to school. So that's really fun to see that. I studied with Gustav Rehberger. He was quite a character. Old school illustrator when they used to pay big bucks to illustrate things. And there was a time when he was, you know, he was a very handsome man. He was a bodybuilder, and he drove around in a white Rolls Royce in Manhattan in the 50s. And you can't do that anymore being an artist. Not an illustrator in any case. It's not as easy. But he was a great teacher, and unfortunately he passed away. So I'm thinking about the light on the flank of the mountains. And I'm just, you know, I'm sort of playing around. In fact, what I like to do is I like to take these brushes where here, these brushes here. I just bought them. They're incredibly expensive. They're at $5.99, I think. This is the time when you start playing around, because you've got the medium set up, and you don't know what's going to happen. I mean, that's part of the surprise. you just don't know. And look at how it pulls the brush and makes this beautiful feeling. And you go back and work into it, but you don't just go, but it helps pull things together. And I love it. I love it when it does that, because now the painting is trying to tell me what it wants next. And, but, okay, so. So I'll start working on the reflection. That was a good idea to put that paper down there. It's excellent. Excellent. Been out much, Vern?
No, not much.
Neither have I. Well, the only way I've been out recently, the only reason I've been out recently is because my roof has ice dams on it. And so I've been...
There's some beautiful scenes out there.
Oh, yeah. Fantastic. So any questions so far about what I'm doing? And you see, I'm not, everything, all the colors relate. There's never, I don't have a color that says, pine, lodgepole pine green. Everything is all part of the same thing. And nature is that way. I mean, all the plants, all the different types of plants out there, they all have one green pigment in them, and that's chlorophyll. And so what's the difference between all the way the trees look is that some trees trap shadow better than other trees. So trees that are very heavy will trap chlorophyll and shadow color. So you always have to, I can go back in and put in more detail again. See, I don't, and I can put in more things. And as the clouds are developing out there, and we don't know if there's going to be a thunderstorm or not, and thunderstorms are my favorite. I love the way the clouds are roiling, and there's this tension in the air. So I'm just putting in some more of the distant clouds, and there's a progression in the atmosphere as the white goes away. You're going to pick up more of the orange and the red element, as opposed to the white overhead, and that gives a sense of depth to the clouds. The clouds always have to be very, very airy, and they have to be. You have to, study them. They're really, really important.
When you're painting, do you try to lead someone's eye into the painting, or do you just kind of go with the flow and you're just feeling the subject matter?
Well, I think that's really, really important. I'm feeling the subject matter, but because I've done this so often, I definitely am also subconsciously wanting to build a light effect. So, so what I want there to be always a vortex, a circle in here. So I want the eye to go, basically I want the eye to go here. This is going to be the effect that I'm going to be building. So I wanted to just get the sky cleaned up a bit, just so that I could prepare that. Because in painting, the effects, at least I've found out, they are best sort of understood when everything else is working in conjunction. So you can't just isolate and make an effect. You have to sort of make sure everything else is preparing for it. So I'm just sort of dancing around it. Does that help answer the question?
Mm-hmm. Do you have a focal point once you get into a little way?
Yes, I'm going to develop that focal point. mean, that's what I try to, you know, you just never know. When you're outside, what I love is the risk that you take when you're outside. I mean, you can come up with a total disaster, and, you know, but you always learn from it. And you can always turn them around in the studio, or use an element of it. So, like this painting, I have no idea, nothing, no idea how it's going to come out. But I'm enjoying every bit of it. And hopefully, you know, it'll be fresh and exciting. So, see, now's the time. Rocks, of course, are not clouds. So the difference between a rock and a cloud is the edge. So a rock has a sharp edge. So you've got to start coming back in and working those edges in. So in this case, it's a rainbow peak, and that's rock, of course. And so this is when you start differentiating things. So you get that harder edge. And I'm still trying to keep that gesture. And then I love that secondary peak, whatever it's called. I'm sure it has a very colorful name. I mean, all these peaks, they're all seemingly one mountain range, right? When you look at overhead, from satellite view, they're just one huge ridge. But every time you look at it from a position down below, one part sticks out and gets a name. So, but it's very exciting. It's just wonderful being in the park. So.
Do you have videos?
Well, just the stuff on YouTube, and this, which might be on YouTube, depending on if my son has the record button on or not.
Yes, it says REC at the top of the screen.
That's good.
I would hope that means it was recording.
I hope so. So, yeah, you can go there.
If it isn't, I still get paid.
Yeah, he still gets paid whether he does a good job or a bad job. So, you know, I'm just playing around. I mean, that's the whole point, is that you're free and you have fun, you know? I mean, that's the ultimate goal. It takes a long time sometimes to get to that point. But you do it for so many years, there's got to be something in it for you, you know? I mean, you got to have fun. You got to be totally free when you're out there and flying. So now, you know, we can start worrying about the edges as we're getting more and more particular. And of course, see, I'm halfway done for this demo. It's kind of nice having a clock here. I thought it would drive me crazy having a clock, but okay. So now you can go down for the trees near the shoreline. The lodgepole, we have whatever, all those spruces.
By painting all over the painting, does that help you develop unity to the entire painting?
Absolutely.
Some people tend to isolate into one area and paint that. It seems like you're kind of all over the canvas.
Yes, and I think that relationship is more important than isolation, definitely. And I think that it could be philosophy. I don't know what it is. It just makes a better painting, no matter what. It just, to me, because you can pull and push. The whole painting is like kind of a lump of clay in a sculptor's hand. You're pushing and pulling. You're never just, you're not finishing. There's too much emphasis on finishing, and just too much. There has to be, when I look at a painting, I don't say, wow, well, that's a really nice eyeball. The right one's better than the left one. I mean, if I'm doing that, then I'm not thinking about it as a painting anymore. I don't think, at least. I mean, you think about, oh, that's a great portrait, and everything's coming together on it. But we're all human, and we all, some paintings are better than others, some really stink. But the fun thing is I embrace that whole process, and I just having fun now. just never know what's going to happen. So, you know, this technique allows you, the technique that I've sort of thought about a lot in my life, and finally I'm at a level where I can feel like I can do it.
If you were doing this painting, not for demonstration purposes, but say you were actually out on air painting, would you do it with this rapidity? Would you paint this?
Yes, because by the first hour, you know, everything's going to change. So you got to have everything down so you don't need to look anymore, because everything will change so fast. And you know, and instead of, you know, trying to mortalize it in camera and running around like, you know, crazy, you can paint it, and then you can paint another one, you know? And you can't get all the subtlety, but I just think it's so much better to do it this way. But it's a lot of fun. So I'm thinking about the beach now, and right here we're, you know, now I'm, let's see, where are we? Okay, so now comes the fun part for me, which is the foliage and the trees. So I'm always dipping into black. Black is a fantastic color because it has a complete triad in it. It's got red, blue, and yellow in it. And when you mix it with gray, you get all these different components of the triad. And so I'm always using it as an anchor. And I'm using it as a color, not a value. So I'm always mixing. You never see straight black or straight gray. It's a concept. Now, I love classical music, and I was really happy to find that Claude Debussy, who was, you know, one of my favorites. I have a lot of favorites, but you know, he never liked being called an impressionist. I mean, he hated it. He disliked impressionist paintings. His favorite painters were the Pre-Raphaelites and Watteau and others. And one of his last piano pieces was called In Black and White, and it was in praise of Velázquez's blacks and grays. And so that's, you know, what I'm thinking about, that beauty, the beauty of the triad and the harmonic. So that's just where I'm at right now.
What black do you use?
That's a good question. You know, I find the only black that's really worth anything is just ivory black. It's just carbon, you know, from animal bones, unfortunately, for those animal lovers. So, but, you know, I haven't used the other blacks. I don't know. I mean, lamp black is a little bit weaker and different, but it depends entirely on, you know, your relationship to it and how you get it, you know.
What name brand paints do you use?
Well, I've been playing around with a whole bunch of stuff. You know, in the old days, I was a bit more of a purist, and I would go with only cadmium colors. I'm really thinking about more pigments. But they made cadmium substitutes that are very good and strong, and why not use them? Because cadmium's expensive, and these colors seem to be pretty good. So they're I don't know what exactly chemically they are. I think there's some kind of I don't know what they are chemically. Cadmium, at least, I believe is like a salt. They take cadmium and then they expose it to sulfuric acid. I mean, that was one of the first pigments to come out of the cadmium pigments out of the Industrial Revolution. And same with the phthalo type colors. They came from refining asphalt and other things like that. They were sort of discoveries. But now things are so different, and I don't know anything about the chemical components anymore.
So who makes them?
Well, good question. I take and borrow from everything. Most paints, almost every paint company these days is decent enough, you know? And if you mix it all together like I did, it's not gonna make much of a difference, you know? So, that's just my feeling after all these years. So I'm gonna just start playing around now with my foliage shadow color, which is basic. I'm gonna have a group of trees here. This is where it gets complicated. Dangerous.
Is that a bristle brush or not? Yeah.
And this here is a brush that's been through hell.
What was it?
It was normally a house painter brush,
Really?
but it's in its happier days. But now it's this great. You know, I learned by being lazy, there are certain benefits. I would always wash my brushes immediately after painting outdoors. And then after a while, I just got a little lazy. And I found that, well, I would also make my own brushes. But when they weren't entirely clean, they were beautiful. They're just fantastic. So I get these beautiful random strokes in here. So I'm not, you know, of course I've drawn trees, so I know what I'm doing. But, you know, you're getting this, the rhythms. It's a good thing they removed their paintings there.
Could find $5 for every black mark on the wall.
Well, you'll be, as part of your job, you'll be scrubbing the wall afterwards.
That costs extra.
Do you
That's my
paint?
son,
Do
everybody,
you
Christopher.
But
Do you
no, I
paint?
don't.
You don't?
No.
So, and then we go, no, he's gonna make the money so that he can buy my paintings.
That's the hope.
Where are some of the best places to paint in Glacier Park?
That's a good question. That's my other son, Harry. Well, I can only say where are my favorite paint places. And, you know, you can make a painting out of anywhere and anything. But my favorite places, and I'm not one of these people that you guys, oh, it's this top secret, I'm not going to tell you. No, I'll tell you everything, okay? I'd love to see you there. So, I love Fish Creek. Vern and I have painted there many times. I love Bowman Lake. And I don't like Kintla as much, at least because, I mean, I love the other end of Kintla, but it takes so long to get there. And I've been there and it's beautiful. But as far as easily getting to and painting, I love Bowman and love the Polson area. There's views of Bowman Creek that are just beautiful.
Polebridge, you mean, right? Or Polson?
Did I say Polson? I meant Polebridge.
Yeah.
Yeah, Polebridge.
I doubt you can see Bowman Creek from Polson.
Yeah, I would get the two mixed up. I haven't been to Polson in a long time. Does it still exist?
No, I got nuked by the Russians.
Okay. So, let's see where else. And of course, I love the standard view of Bergman Falls from the Bend. That's one of my favorites because there's just lots of drama, and the mountains, they have plenty of weather coming over. Just pouring over, and that's a great place to see the clouds pouring over the mountain, and then the waterfall. Just endless, By the way, I just saw that movie Turner for the first time. Has anyone had seen it?
What is it?
Turner, about the painter.
Yeah.
Yeah, Joseph William Millard Turner.
Yeah, you're talking about it's
Yeah.
the Industrial Revolution, and there's a scene where he goes in to buy all the materials for his paint.
That's right, and that's awesome. Well, that is probably the most beautiful movie about an artist. Most of the time, they're just overwrought. These movies about artists, That movie is just phenomenal to me. And it was an extremely beautiful interpretation of his life. And, it didn't try really hard to make scandal or have the guy be, whatever. Like, it just to me was just the way I sort of envisioned being an artist at that time. Anyone else know any good artist movies that you can recommend? I haven't seen that one. Oh, no, I haven't seen that one. I'd love to see that one.
I think Gerard Depardieu plays Rodin.
Oh, okay.
So you use one brush for the whole thing? Two brushes for the whole thing?
One brush? Well, actually, just about 3 or 4. Yeah. Well, I find when you clean them, and you don't have an assistant cleaning your brushes, you tend to be very efficient. But it's true, you can go, once you're done with the sky, then it doesn't really matter. You just sort of clean your brush in the next color.
How do you choose the sequence of colors? How do you make your palette on the painting. What's the next color you're going to use?
Well,
How do you
it's,
decide that?
I sort of decided, maybe we can describe it best by saying, what value do I need in this painting, to make it, like, what values are, like lightness and darkness. So you almost think about value so much that, then you think about the color, whether it's coming or going, and then you think about, I don't know, I just don't think about it. Just after a while, I guess that's a real gift, when you can just forget it all. It just took me a long time.
Well, you have a finished view of what this should look like, and you trying to move it closer to what you want it to look like?
Well, I don't know what that finished view is yet. It's sort of, the painting's telling me what it wants at this point. And I've ceded control to it, because it's now telling me what it wants.